Today, we're going to talk about Google Trends and localization and how you actually use Google Trends to figure out what local businesses or how you should target in your local area. Now, I know that doesn't really work for people who are selling things, across the United States or across the world or whatever the case is. But this is if you have like a localized service. For instance, if you're an accountant. And how does that look? And guys, thank you for watching all of our videos on Google Trends and other content topics. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe below. Also, leave us comments. We love to see what other videos you'd love for us to create. So if you haven't used Google Trends before, and this is one of your first, experiences with it, or the first video you're watching, you could actually use Google Trends for geolocating and getting information in your localized country. As you can see up here, you could basically go through and pick any of the states you want. Any of the countries you want, I should say. And we're going to get into how you localize that down to states, but we're going to look at the United States today. Now, for instance, if you're an accountant and you're looking at the search term, if I could spell it right, if you're looking at the search term accountant, what does that actually look like? So we're going to put that in. And we see here, right now, we're getting information for the entire United States. Now, it's already telling us where, by subregion, it is, there are searches, right? And also down here, we're going to see related topics as well as related queries. Now, that is for the entire United States or whatever country you selected. Now, if we wanted to do it by, subregion, what you do is you can come here and you can click on United States or whatever country you had selected, and you could start typing in, for instance, if we wanted to look at New York. Okay, so if we just wanted to look at the state of New York, we can see here, this pretty much shows the density. Obviously, the New York City area or the Metro New York area is going to have the biggest density, just the way it works. And we're seeing some of the other regions that actually have high density. Now, once again, you could drill down over here, and below you could actually see some of the related topics as well as the queries. Now, what's interesting on these, okay, you should look at this because these actually show the increase on the ratings. So how are they increasing? At what percent are they increasing? But what we're going to do is we're going to look at this at a much finer level. So for instance, we're going to look at New York City. Okay, so New York, not New York, New Jersey, which is interesting because it's in the metro area, but New York, New York. So we're going to click that. And we're going to see, here's our data for the trending. So if you don't know how it works, it's by date. So we see when people are spiking, the year ends, we see the year end, and then we see accounting spiking because people are filing their taxes. So we usually see this spike over here as people are doing that before the May 15th deadline, but this is when they're doing their research in order to find an accountant or find what they need to do. Now, if we look here in this area, we see New York and Yonkers have the highest density. So the search interest here in New York City is 100. Okay, if we look down here, we'll also see what people, the related topics, as well as the related queries. What does an accountant do? Now, what's interesting is you see that on the rise. That may actually be because a lot of people are going to school, right? We'd have to do some more research to understand that. But what's interesting is tax accountants near me. That's people still filing their taxes this year, with COVID and everything, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess depending on which end you are, we had taxes extended out. So people are probably still looking for accountants or things like that, or even to close out the year as we're nearing towards the end of the year. So what's interesting is you have the more queries, but what you could do is you could actually click on this query. And once again, you could see it in your localized region. This one doesn't have enough data, but in your localized region of New York, New York, if it had more data. Now, also what you could do here is, just go back one more time. And it looks like it wants me to go back. And maybe it won't let me do that. So let's just put in accountant real quick and go back to our original search. We're now still in New York, but what we could do is we could actually look at some of these other breakout things. So if we click on director of business, same thing, we see the trending data. We see the data for New York. We could once again bring that down into, into the localized regions within inside New York. And then we see here are some other related topics as well as what are those queries. Now, why is this important for you? There's a few things. One, you're going to know when those big surges are in the market in terms of time frame. Two, you're going to realize how you could also target your advertising. So for instance, if you've served all of New York or you just serve like the metro New York area, maybe you just want to target certain regions at certain times if you're doing like an ad buy, let's say. It also lets you know when you need to create content. But what's also really important are what are the related queries. And you could actually go and look at these related queries and see, should I create content around these related queries? So it's always good to start with Google Trends, see what's actually going on. But then you could also use other keyword tools such as SEMrush, Moz, or any of the other ones where you could actually get a little bit deeper into keyword research. Well, I hope all of you enjoyed this video on localized Google Trends. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you leave us comments. And we love to hear your thoughts on other topics you would like to see around Google Trends, search engines, or even content. Thanks for joining us today, guys.